In this video, I'm going to give you a demonstration of cloud functions. And we're going to talk about some of the intermediate level things you may want to do when you're configuring a cloud function. Now, they're actually now called cloud run functions. And as of March 2025, they're actually so integrated in that they're just a part of Cloud Run. So when I go to my start menu here, or my menu, we see Cloud Run and we see Cloud Run functions. But if I actually choose Cloud Run functions, we notice it takes me right to the Cloud Run interface. And it's just an option up here for Cloud Run. Now, what's the big difference between Cloud Functions and Cloud Run? Well, they used to be separate products. Cloud Functions were about providing your code, and then Google provides the runtime. So for code that might be Python, Ruby, Node.js, Java, and .NET, uh, and there may be one or two others in there, versus Cloud Run, which executed a container on demand. So you had to build your container, and then they would run that container when called. So whatever you want to put inside your container, whatever you want to use as the runtime, then you build that in your container. Whereas Cloud Functions, where very much you have to be compatible with Google's runtime. So in this demonstration, we're going to demonstrate a Cloud Run function. Now, I'm creating a service, and notice it's gone over here and said you're going to use an inline editor to create your function. Now, the others are probably looking towards more container type options, deploy a revision from an existing container image, or continuous deploy from a repository where it'll actually go and build that into a container versus just putting in the code. So cloud functions have really been absorbed into the Cloud Run product as just another option within there. But we're going to use the Cloud Run function option here. So I'm going to call this my demo function. And I'm going to go ahead and deploy it to the US Central one location. And it is a multi-zonal product, by the way. It's a regional level product. So Google's going to deploy it in multiple zones in that region when they need to run it. So we don't have to worry about anything zonal related to our cloud function. Now, here's our runtimes. And you want to make a mental note of these if you're working on your Google Cloud certification, because if an exam question seems to be focused around a runtime, they're probably hinting you're probably going to be using something like a cloud function. So they're saying your code is .NET based, or Go, or Java, or Python, or PHP, or Ruby, then you're probably looking at a cloud function. Whereas if they start talking about containerizing your application, well, now we're thinking more Cloud Run, or possibly even Kubernetes. And if you're talking like you need to control the environment 100%, well, you might be talking virtual machines where you're going to boot up, say, Ubuntu or Debian. You're going to load all your code and all your dependencies and everything. But the idea of this serverless product is we're just going to pay for every time the function is called, what's called an invocation or a request to our function, plus the amount of time that it takes for that to execute, billable in 100 millisecond intervals. And so over here we see we get 180,000 virtual CPU seconds a month plus 360,000 gigabyte seconds per month. So how much RAM you're using plus 2 million requests. And after that, then you'll start to incur costs. And that's per billing account. Okay, so I'm going to deploy actually Python code here. And so I'm going to deploy Python. I'm going to have it do unauthenticated requests. So that way we could just go to a URL and see that our function's working. All right. Looks like I got a warning. They're warning me that your organizational policy might have a constraint saying that you're not allowed to use unauthenticated invocations. Basically, you're not allowed to use the all users, which is effectively what's happening behind the scenes because anybody's going to be able to come up and utilize this. But I've actually verified and this project is okay. Now, I'm going to be request based, so I'm only going to be charged when it's processing a request. So it's basically turned off until somebody requests it. And then it'll be requested, they'll run, and then when they're done, they turn it off again. I'm not going to have any instances pre-warmed up or anything. That doesn't make sense for a small Python or simple type function. If you're running more complex code that had a little more warm-up time, well, you might want to have one always running, but that would incur some constantly running CPU costs. Okay, so I'm going to start off at 0 and it'll scale up as needed. And it's going to be allowed to be requested from the internet, and it's going to be allowed to communicate with the internet side. Now, I could change that to internal, where it can only talk to or it can only be called from inside my VPC. So see, it says allow traffic from your project's shared VPC and VPC service control perimeters. Traffic from other cloud run services have to be routed through your VPC and all that. So you'd have to have some internal networking. Versus this, I want this just accessible from the internet so we can see it works. Now, we've given it a runtime, and down here we've got a few options. Now, we're going to go ahead and set up a couple options now. Although they're not going to be 100% up, we're going to encounter a few little hiccups along the way. And the idea is I want to be able to show you what's actually happening and how you actually configure the rest of this. So down here, they got what container. We're not going to run a container. It's going to put a placeholder in there for the initial deployment. And then after that, our code will run. Over here, we're not connecting to any volumes. So we don't have any volumes in there. We don't have any networking. We're not doing any fancy networking. But we are going to change this service account because I don't want to use the default Compute Engine service account. I'm going to create a new service account. I want to call this our demo function SA. We're going to create a service account just for this function to use. And then we'll go and give it access to what we want this function to do. Now, right now, I'm not going to give it any access because I want it to. I've got a few little things planned for this demo that I want it to not be able to do. So we're going to assign it the credential of the demo function SA, and we're going to leave encryption as is. So we're going to click Create. So we're going to see up the top that they're creating a sort of a placeholder service. They're setting the policy, they're creating and they're routing traffic to it. And so now I have a URL for my function. Actually, that was a function I had earlier. Let's see what this does. See, so they show, oh, this is just a placeholder. We got a sad unicorn there, I think. Yep, they always use this purple unicorn for Cloud Run. It's just a placeholder. We can now go and edit our code, though. So we're going to jump back to our source here of our demo function. Get rid of a couple things back here. We'll leave service accounts there in case we need it. And so this is my sample code that they start me off with. It's importing in functions framework, and that way we can process the request that comes in. And you can review the documentation to find out what could be in that request. And by default, it looks like if the request has a name field, it just uses the name field. Otherwise, it just says world and prints hello world. Well, we're going to get rid of that part there. And we're just going to start off we're going to say return text equals testing 1, 2, 3 of our cloud function. So cloud function version 1. And we're just going to return that value. So we're going to just return text. And let's go ahead and deploy that. And let's see if that works. So we're going to save that. And now what's happening behind the scenes is Google is building it. What are they building? They're building a container. Okay, Cloud Run is container-based, but if you're using a cloud function, you're not responsible for building the container. Google knows how to handle a Python 3.12 code. They've got sort of this pre-built container, and they're just going to drop your code in there, do whatever initialization they need to do, and then deploy it out onto Cloud Run. So Cloud Functions, this was sort of the evolution of where they went. Was Google just said, hey, we'll just build it behind the scenes. In fact, in order to use a Cloud Run function, you need to have the Cloud Build API enabled. So on a new project, it'll say, hey, you need to enable the Cloud Build API. And now Google is using Cloud Build under the hood to create the container that's actually been deployed here. But we just worry about code. So this is great if you're not yet ready to build Docker containers, or you're doing something simple. You just need some simple code to do some stuff. And so it's deploying out our new code. Let's see. Should be done here in just a minute. Looks like we're seeing a little bit of a upload in there. Yep, there we go. And let's see if our code works. So we're going to click on here and look, testing 1, 2, 3, Cloud Function version 1 versus, and I bet if we just refresh that, it would do the same thing. Okay, so we've got our Cloud Function working. It's taking anonymous requests, so we know the framework is in place. So now we can actually start to write a little bit of code. Now, I'm just going to do a simple demonstration here of having it do something within our Google Cloud. So let's go build a bucket. I'm going to pop over to Cloud Storage. And in Cloud Storage here, I'm going to look, let's see, we got a public bucket, but that's publicly accessible. And then, Cloud Run built this. This is where Cloud Run is staging all of our files and everything for the Cloud Run build operations and things. So we're going to create a new bucket. Let's create a new bucket called GC Demo ENV Bucket. Okay, I'm going to position the bucket in the US multi-regional. That should be fine. I'm going to use the standard storage class because I'm going to read back and forth on my bucket frequently. And we are going to have public access prevention. So this bucket will not have a public access on it. We're going to have uniform security. So only the permission on the bucket applies. There are not individual file permissions. And down here, we can leave a soft delete policy. That's fine. So let's create this bucket. Now they're warning us, hey, we're going to enforce public access, and that's fine. And so we now have a new bucket. So let's put a couple files up in here. So I'm going to just upload a couple files, and I've got some sample files here. I'll upload a picture of my parrot. I'll upload a picture of a bison. Let's see what else. We'll put a picture of the Death Star, and I usually got a picture of the moon here, so let's put a picture of the moon there. Okay, so I just uploaded these 4 files into that bucket. So let's say I want my Cloud function to list the files in a bucket that are present. And maybe if I was really fancy, I'd then give me links to download those or something. But let's just get started with that. So we got this bucket with these 4 files in it. So let's go back to our source code. Let's edit our source code, and let's insert some code that's actually going to read, say, the bucket. Read a list of the files in the bucket and then display them. So I need some Python code for that. Luckily I got Visual Studio open, and I've got Visual Studio enabled for Google their code. So I've got Gemini loaded up here, Gemini Code Assist. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm just going to put a comment. Give me the Python code to talk or to read a list of files in a Google Cloud Storage bucket named, and I think GC Demo Environment Bucket. And I'll just hit Control Enter, and it should generate me some code. Okay, so looks like we're going to need from Google Cloud import storage. Let's copy that over. So I'm going to take that, put that in the header. We're going to keep the same function. So I'm not going to actually use their function, but I am going to steal these 3 lines from here. And so what are they going to do? They are going to create a storage client. The bucket is going to read the bucket name. So we better put a bucket name in here. And we're going to make our bucket name was GC Demo ENV Bucket. That's the name of our bucket. And it's going to call blobs bucket list, because a bucket actually doesn't contain files. It contains binary large objects, or blobs. So we're going to have it, okay, we're going to have it list our blobs. So we're going to say return text equals listing files in bucket. And we'll go ahead and do our bucket name in there. And then we're going to go borrow their file list. So we're going to say for blobs and blobs, that'll kind of work a little bit there. We're going to say blobs and blobs. Let's go ahead and make it return text equals return text plus, let's add a BR since it's going to come back as HTML. We're going to do a B, and then we'll go ahead and get the blob.name. That should be good. So we're going to list the files in the bucket for the blob. We're going to return it, and then we'll get rid of this guy, and we will just return. So it's going to list of files in the bucket, in bucket such and such, and it's just going to return the list. So let's see if the code's going to work. Oh, you know what? Probably need to do one thing. Well, let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and deploy this and see if we get an error or anything like that. So it's building the source. And I know there's going to be an error here. What's the error going to be? Well, Hopefully you're thinking, what could be wrong? Well, Grant, you are calling Google Cloud Storage, but how do you tell it you want to install that? How do you pip install Google Cloud Storage? Yep. Yep, failed. Yep, we got a failure on that. Failed, we could go look at the logs. In fact, we could pop right over here to the logs, and that'll give us a little bit of an idea as to what's going wrong. And so we've got down here, that was our request from earlier. They haven't quite, probably the update probably hasn't got the logs here. I'm going to toggle off and I'm going to go back to logs and let's see if we got something new. Because this should be all of our logs. And nothing new just yet. Okay, let's see what they say when we say go look at the logs. They're sending us over to, it wasn't a Cloud Run problem. Let's look at that again. Yeah, it was in building the source. So it wasn't a problem with the function. It was actually in the source. And it was a problem with Cloud Build. So Cloud Build went to build this. And it came back and said, they don't know what, it's my syntax. Well, it wasn't even that. They couldn't even build. It was invalid Python. Okay, wasn't even the problem I thought I was going to have. Let me edit my source, though. And I'm going to add a plus because I want to add those three together. We'll save and deploy. Let's see if it gets a little bit farther. I thought it was actually a different problem. I was set up for a different problem that we're going to see here. So the building source, so it's calling Cloud Build. And in fact, we can go watch that if we want. We can go look at our Cloud Build. So in Cloud Build, if we look at the history, Cloud Build has been building the containers for us here. See, so it's building right now. So that's our build of using a simple build pack of turning our code into a Python-based container. So a Docker container with Python runtime and our code in there. So it's working on that to build that, but we're probably going to run a little bit of problems with what's been installed. So it built, but when we actually go back here, revision demo function is not ready. They're saying it didn't run. We could try looking at cloud logging. So now cloud logging might have a few more details for us. Although sometimes it can be a little cryptic to do. Demo function, method, something in here. We had a failure. Okay, we had a startup probe fail. And from cloud import storage. Oh, that caused our exit. Yep, it doesn't know what that is. Okay, that's because we didn't pip install it. Now I'm going to use Gemini here and I'm going to say, what do I need to pip install to make this code work? And it's probably going to tell me I needed to pip install Google Cloud Storage. Well, how do I do that in my cloud function? Well, over here, there's a requirements file. And what we have to do is go in and put in the requirements, just like you would if you were making a simple requirements.txt and you would say, hey, I want to pip install the file, whatever's listed in the file. So we need Google Cloud Storage. Now, I don't need to lock it to a particular version. I'm pretty comfortable that that's going to work. So let's save that and see if our function deploys now. So build. So right now behind the scenes, it's calling Cloud Build saying, hey, Grant just gave us this Python 3.12 code. Let's build this into a container form. So they're going to build it for me. That should take about a minute, depending on the complexities. And then it's going to update the service. It's going to create a revision, so a new version of my container behind the scenes, and then start routing traffic to it. And we'll cross our fingers that it's successfully able to build and able to deploy it because the code initializes. We don't have the second line of our code that says from Google Cloud import storage. It needs to know that. So if you had any other libraries you need, you'd put them into your requirements file. Okay, looks like we're routing traffic. And if everything goes right, we should be getting traffic directed there. But we're going to run into a problem. But part of this is I want to show you how to troubleshoot this a little bit. So here is our URL. We go to our URL and we are getting a 500 internal service error. Now a 500 error is a server-side error. A 400 is a client-side error. A 300 is a redirect, and a 200 is an OK. 200 is the way the web server goes back to the client and says, all is good. 300 says, hey, that page has been redirected. 400 said, you asked me for something that doesn't exist, or your request is malformed. Something's wrong on the client side. and a 500 is something's wrong on the server side. And this is a very nondescript error we've got here. But there's probably a little more in the Cloud Run logs here. So let's look at our log. Let's look at our most recent event. Okay, so we went to go read the list of the files, but we got a storage object to get the bucket list. So we needed the list of the buckets. We don't have storage object list access. Of course we don't. We created a service account. So our service account for our project, and I'm going to look in the YAML, that'll have what we used. So we said we wanted it to use the service account, demo function SA, but did we ever give that service account permissions to our bucket to list our files? No, we didn't. So let's go to our bucket and let's go ahead and adjust the permissions on this bucket. Now, we're not going to make the bucket public like we did for, say, the web server. We're going to grant access to our service account, and we're going to give our service account the cloud storage. And if we just needed to be able to view the list of files, well, Cloud Storage Object Viewer grants access to view objects and their metadata, excluding the access control lists, and they can also list the files in a bucket. Perfect. So we're going to save that. And while we're waiting for that, it would already be there. But let's take a quick look at that role. And I'm going to look to see what that role actually does. Okay, so in Google, I'm going to look at Cloud Storage Viewer. Or actually, let's do Cloud Storage. Okay, so that was a Cloud Storage. That was a Storage Object Viewer. And Storage Object Viewer is allowed to, if it's given at the project level, can get and list folders. If it's done at the, or if it's done just at the bucket level, well, we'll be able to see folders and we'll be able to see objects in the bucket. So it depends what level this is put on. Since we put it just on the bucket, we're basically giving the ability to list folders and list objects in there and get the contents of an object. So that's actually probably all it needed. So our buckets now got that permission here directly on that bucket. There's our demo function SA, and it's got storage object viewer here. So if we go back and try our function again, we don't even need to recompile it. There we go. We got our list of our files in our bucket. So we created a custom service account. We granted that custom service account just the access it needed. So if somebody managed to trick my code into doing something evil, its service account doesn't have the permissions. It's only got permissions to list the files and to view the files. So that's all we gave it with that particular role. And that's the idea of implementing least privilege. And least privilege is a security concept to say just give it just enough access for what it needs to do. So if you're writing 5 functions and each function is going to be doing different things, you might consider using a different service account for each. You can have as many service accounts as you really need in your project. Okay, you're unlikely to hit an upper limit. And what you do is you build the service account for a purpose, giving it just the access it needs. And so our refresh over here, see, here's our list of our functions, or sorry, not our functions, our service accounts. And we created this one, demo functions SA, just for our demo function. And that's all we had to do is create it, because behind the scenes, Google is managing all that through their application default credentials. And the cloud function, when we actually look at it, this cloud function, if we actually look at the source, it says it's using their base image of Python 3.12 running on Ubuntu 2022, because that's their engine underneath. And that engine knows how to claim the Google credential. So when it goes through, this is actually the line that basically has it go through application default credential claiming. So we didn't have to provide a key file. We would definitely not want to embed that in our source code. We wouldn't have that built in our container. So we can use this in a lot of different ways. Oh, should we add something else? Let's add a little something else to this. I'm going to go and I'm going to open up Secret Manager. Let's add a little bonus here. You don't have to know a whole lot about Secret Manager for the Google certification exam, but it's definitely something useful to know about. Oh, it's not under IM. We're going to go over here. We're going to do Secret Manager. So we're going to pop into Secret Manager, and I'm going to go ahead and enable it. I don't think it's been enabled in this project. So we're going to enable Secret Manager. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little secret in there, and we're going to add the code to let our Cloud Function read from the secret. And again, least privilege is what we're going to want to do. So let's create a secret, and let's call this Cloud CF Demo Secret. And we're going to go and put the secret, and we're going to say ABC123 XYZ 456 ABC. So that's going to be our secret. So we're creating a secret, and we've now got this secret. So let's go ahead, and that's our secret. We're going to copy this right here. Actually, we should just be able to do that. Okay, that's going to be our secret name. So I would like to use that secret in my code. So back in my function, did I close my window? My function, I did. Yep, so let's pop over to our Cloud Function again. We'll go into our demo function. And so let's say in addition to our code, we would also like it to say the secret. So we're going to go ahead and get our secret here too. So let's go ahead and do we want to get our secret. We're going to need code for that. That's okay. I'll just use Gemini for that. I could look at the documentation. I go look around. Let's say, show me or give me the Python code to read Google Secret Manager. All right, we'll tell it to do that. And there we go. So now they've given me a whole function for it. And they're giving me a few. They're saying, okay, open the client up with the Secret Manager. They're specifying in a particular format. So the project ID, secret, and then the version, and everything there. So it looks like they've created a function to let us pass that, but we can go ahead and figure that out. We'll refactor it later. Let's say, what do we need to pip install? And it says, we're going to need the Google Cloud Secret Manager. All right, well, that's easy. We'll add that to our requirements file. So let's get the Secret Manager in there. Let's go back to our source, and we're going to go ahead and we can go ahead and read our secret in early. So let's grab our client. We need the Secret Manager client. Okay. Now, name, they're setting up the name of our secret here. And so we're going to have to do a little bit with that. Let's see. We better put in our Secret Manager at the top here. Okay. So what do they want us to do? They say client project. Now, we should be able to use that as some sort of environment variable later, but let's go ahead and let's just code it. We'll come back to refactor, put ourselves comment, refactor to read the current project name. But just for my demo, wanted to hear what was our secret called? Well, our secret was called, let's see, our security, we called our secret was called CF Demo Secret. And versions, we're actually going to pull the latest secret. And so that's going to go ahead and request it. And then it's going to decode it. And we're going to then print it. I'm going to print the payload because that's actually going to be the secret. And then why don't we go ahead and we'll make a little return text. We'll say our return text equals secret. And we'll add our payload. Plus, we're going to go ahead and we'll add a BR. Actually, we're going to do that. Yeah, we better. We'll add a BR to that line break. And then we'll make this our return text equals return text. Plus that. Okay. So we should now be able to read our secret. Now, what's our secret going to do? It's going to read our CF demo secret and the latest version of that. And let's see how our code does. So we're going to save and deploy that. Think everything looks good. There's our name. Let's see what happens. We add it to the requirements. So we're going to rebuild. What didn't we do? Anybody? We didn't give permissions to the secret yet. because the secret's going to have permissions. And to implement least privilege, we should probably go give our service account permissions just to that secret. So let's grab our service account. I can always grab it from here. I'm sure it's in a dozen other places. But that's the service account we're using. So let's pop over to our secret. And on our secret here, we can give permissions just to our service account. And we're going to give it the permission, so secret manager, and we're going to give it secret manager secret accessor. So we're going to let it access the payload of our secret, but not all the secrets in the project, just this one. And so about the time our code gets deployed here, the function looks like it's running. Let's run our code. Secret, contents ABCD, and then we got our list of our files. So what happens if I go and we update that secret? Because that's what you do with secrets, you update them. So we're going to upload a secret. Now maybe our secret's going to be ZZZ, YYY, XXX, ABC, 123. I'm going to save that. And now my function, let's refresh. And now notice we're getting the secret out of there. And let's see what happens. Let's add a couple things to our bucket. So I'm going to go upload a couple files into our bucket here, and then I'll let you go. But we're learning about a number of different Google sort of activities here, but they're all going to work the same way. So let's go ahead and upload a file, and we'll upload, what shall we upload? We can upload a picture of, how about a Google TPU? We'll upload that into the bucket. And our code, we refresh, and look at that. See, we're seeing our file names. So it's reading live from our bucket, and it's reading live from our secret. And that's the idea. So let's say you wanted to add BigQuery. What would you do? Well, you would need to add your requirements. You'd need to have the appropriate BigQuery, and you would have to add the appropriate initialization first to the top, where are you going to bring in BigQuery, and then how are you going to establish the client to talk to BigQuery versus the client to talk to our secret versus the client to talk to our bucket. And from there, you could add all your other Google products. You're not hard coding passwords anywhere. You're not going in there. You're not having to worry about management or anything like that of those service accounts. You create the service account, give it the permission of what it needs, and then let your cloud function utilize that service account. All right, so that's basically Cloud Functions, along with a little bit of service account review, a little bit of buckets, and also you got to learn a little bit about Secret Manager. So hopefully you enjoyed this. You found this useful little 30 minutes, and we'll see you for another video.